Welcome to this predicted paper from onmaths. This paper represents the best guess for the upcoming exams. Please use this paper in addition to your other revision. You can complete a unique version of this paper by going to our onmaths site. Onmaths is full of free content to help you prepare for your exams, such as topic-based papers, demon questions, and mini mocks. If you like what we do, please consider subscribing. Enjoy! For this question, it's really important that we understand what the words sum and product mean. Now, sum just means add, and product just means times. So we're going to start by adding the 5 and the 4. So that will equal 9. And then what we're going to do is find the product of 9 and 7. So we're going to multiply them together. 9 times 7, which is 63. So our answer is 63. All angles around a point add up to 360 degrees. So we've got this angle here, which is 25 degrees, and we've got this angle here, which is currently unknown. So to find out what A is, we're going to take away that 25 from 360. And when you do that, you get 335 degrees, which is our answer. You'll often need to write down the reason, which is angles around a point add up to 360 degrees. The formula for the area of a rectangle is the width times the length. The width is 3 and the length is 5, therefore the area will be 15. The units of the width and the length are both centimetres, therefore the units will be centimetres squared. So I'm going to just copy that number down again, just make it a bit bigger so we can see what we're doing. Okay, we're asked to work that out, round it to 3 significant figures. That means 3 numbers from the left hand side. So starting here, 1, 2, 3. Now the first number has to be not a 0. So if it was a decimal, we would start counting as soon as it wasn't a 0. After that 4, then we're going to put a line down. Now all the numbers are going to turn into 0 on the right hand side. So these numbers here will all turn to zeros. But before they do, we need to look at this number. Now this number is a decider number. If it is 5 or more, then it will push this number up by 1. If it's less than 5, then nothing will happen. Because it's less than 5, all the numbers to the right will turn into zeros. And with decimals, if they're zeros, we don't need to write them. So the answer would be 30.4. I'm going to start just by writing down the number. And we're asked to round this to 3 significant figures. And basically what that means is starting from the left-hand side, it's 3 numbers that we want. So 1, 2, 3. And we're going to do our line after that third number. And you start counting the first non-zero digit. So the first digit there was 2, so we started counting. Now all the numbers to the left, or sorry, to the right, so these numbers here, will all turn to 0. But before that happens, we look at this number. Now this number, if it's 5 or more, it moves this number up by 1. If it's less than 5, that number stays the same. Now it is 5 or more, because it is 5. So it's not going to be 207, it's going to be 208. Now, a common mistake is that students write down 208. No, all the numbers to the right of that line turn to 0. So it would be 0, 0, 0. So it would be 20,000 or 208,000 exactly. So to solve this, I'm going to first of all just write out the question just to make it a bit bigger. First thing we do is put in our solving lines. So we just put a set of lines to the left and the right of the equals. And what we need to do is get the x on its own. So looking around, there's this 11 we want to get rid of, and this take away 5 we want to get rid of. Always get rid of the plus or the take away first. So we're going to focus on this minus 5. We've got to figure out what is the opposite, what's the inverse of take away 5. Well, the inverse is going to be plus 5. Now we can't just do that to the left hand side, we've got to do it to the right hand side as well. So we add 5 to both sides. When we add 5 to the left hand side, we're just left with the 11x. On the right hand side, we do 28 plus 5, which is 33. Now, we still don't have x on its own. We've got this 11 here. Now, what is that 11 doing? Well, that 11 is a times 11. It's multiplying x by 11. So to get rid of it, we need to do the inverse of times 11, the opposite, which is divided by 11. And what we do to one side, we must do to the other side. So we're going to divide 11 both sides. That will leave us just the x on the left-hand side, and 33 divided by 11 is 3. So the word solve means find out what x equals, and we've done that. So for shop A, they're selling the rulers in lots of 3. And so we just need to get our 60 and divide it by 3 to figure out how many lots of 3 we have. So we've got 20. So if one bundle of rulers costs £1.50, then 20 times £1.50 would be £30. So in total it would cost £30 at shop A. We're going to do the same for shop B. Their bundles are 5 rulers, so we're going to do 60 divided by 5, which is 12. So we're going to buy 12 bundles at £2 each, and that will be £24. So the cheapest price is at shop B at £24. Something to realise in this table we're given in this question is that the triangle has 3 sides, quadrilateral 4, pentagon 5, and hexagon 6. And that number is just 2 less than the number of faces. So basically, if you've got the number of sides, you add 2. So 4 plus 2 is 6, 5 plus 2 is 7, and 6 plus 2 is 8. So if we've got 20 sides, and we just do the same thing, so we're just adding 2, then we should have 22 faces. So our answer is 22. So if we just add the amount of sides each of these shapes has, a triangle has 3 sides, quadrilateral 4, pentagon 5, hexagon 6. And notice what's happening with the number of edges. They're multiplied by 3. Each time they're multiplied by 3. So all we need to do is get the 15, multiply it by 3, which will be 45. So there will be 45 edges. So the way these tables work is if you're looking for distance between Chauvin and Grill, you find out where the 2 of those overlap, and so they overlap at the 41. So you go down from Chauvin, left from Grill, and we get 41, and so it would be 41 miles between them. The first thing we need to work out is the fraction that Sarah will receive. Well, if Jane receives 9 over 10, then that just leaves how much of the numerator to match the denominator. So 9 plus 1 is 10, so it leaves 1/10 left for Sarah to have. And the reason that works is that the total amount needs to add up to 1, and 9 over 10 plus 1 over 10 is 10 over 10, which is just 1. So next we need to find out what 1/10 of 60 is. So we know that we divide by the bottom and times by the top. So 60 divided by 10 is 6, and then 6 times 1 is just still 6. So our answer will be £6. This question's all about like terms. So what we can do is we can add this 10u with this 11u to make 21u. We can also add this 6v with this plus 4v to make 10v. We can also add this 10w to this minus 6w. So 10 take away 6 is 4w, so plus 4w. But we can't add a u term to a v term to a w term. So we have to just leave them be. So our answer is 21u plus 10v plus 4w. But we can multiply them, we just can't add or subtract them. So we're going to first of all work out what 100% of 260 is, and that's just 260. Next we're going to work out what 10% is. And 10% is very easy because we just divide it by 10. So 260 divided by 10 is 26. And we also need a 5, so I'm going to try and grab a 5%. And we do that by halving the 10%. So that'd be 13. And then all we need to do is add the 26 to the 13, because the 10 plus the 5% are 15. And that's 39. So our answer is 39. So football is represented as a quarter of this pie chart. And so if there are 60 students altogether, we just do 60 divided by 4 to find a quarter of it, and that's 15. So there are 15 people who picked football. To answer this question, we're going to find the answers to the numerator and denominator, then we're going to divide the two. So 3 plus 42 is 45. 5 times 3 is 15. And what this line means in the fraction, it means divide. So we're going to do 45 divided by 15. So I'm just going to go through the 15 times table and just work out that's 1 times 15, 2 times 15, 3 times 15. So 3 15s in 45. Whenever we multiply two negatives, we always get a positive, so we know our answer will be positive. We're going to do 9 times 12, which is going to be 108, and v times v, which is going to be v squared. So how a frequency table works is the frequency tells you how many are in each group. So we've got 11-year-olds here, and the frequency says there are 4 11-year-olds. There are 10 12-year-olds, 5 13-year-olds, and 8 14-year-olds. So to find out how many there are altogether, we're just going to do the 4 plus the 10 plus the 5 plus the 8, and that will equal 27. So there are 27 children altogether. So a composite bar chart is where you'll stack the bar charts on top of each other. So we're going to start with this 12 here. And so I'm just going to do a bar up to 12. And these lines go up in 2s, so it would be there. And then we're going to do this females. So we've done the males, we're going to do the females. And the females is only going to be 1 high, because they're going up in 2s. And we need a way of showing male or female. So what I'm going to do is just shade the female there, and I'm going to just draw a key. I'm going to say if it's not shaded, it's males. And if it is shaded, it's females. Okay, next we're going to do the 8 and the 4. So what you can do is just do the whole thing, then split it afterwards. So it would be like that. Shade in the females. And then finally we've got a 4 and a 12. And let's shade in the females there. Now don't spend forever on your shading, as long as it's clear which one's male and which one's female. So I'm going to write the fact and the question kind of one on top of the other so we can see what's going on. So we're going to write the question underneath. Now you'll notice that the question is very similar to the fact. And in fact, we can see that all we've done here is we've times that by 100. And all we've done here is we've times it by 10. So what have we got to do with our answer? Well, we've got to times it by 100 and times it by 10. In other words, we've got to times it by 1,000. And so we're going to times this by 1,000 and we'll get 11,187 as our answer. We've got to first of all find out what the y-intercept is. And the y-intercept is just where our line hits the y-axis. So the y-intercept, which we sometimes can call C, is 11. Now, what's that 11? What units is it? Well, it's 11 pounds because our y coordinate, our y-axis is in pounds. But what does that mean for the taxi company? Well, how many miles have been travelled on the y-axis? Well, 0. So at 0 miles, we've had to pay the taxi man or woman £11. So we know that therefore the taxi costs £11 at the start. We'll just leave it at that. Okay, so the initial charge, or the cost for the taxi turning up, is £11. Instead of doing 0.43 times 16, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 43 times 16. So I'm just going to get rid of the decimal and just change it to 43. But I've got to remember what I've done. So how have I managed to do that? Well, I've times it by 100, and that'll be important at the end. And to do 43 times 16, there are loads and loads of different methods. Just pick whichever method you enjoy doing or that you find easiest. I'm going to do the grid method, but it by no means is the best method. It's just the one I'm choosing to do. So 43 is 40 and 3, and 16 is 10 and 6. So 40 times 10 is 400, 40 times 6 is 240, 10 times 3 is 30, and 3 times 6 is 18. Then I'm just going to add them all together. So 400 plus 240 plus 30 plus 18. And when you add those all together, you get 688. Okay. Now, the problem is that obviously this is not going to equal 688. What we've done though is we've timesed it by 100. So to find the answer, all we need to do is divide this, undo that times by 100, so divide it by 100. When we divide that by 100, we get 6.88. So you do need to know the parts of a circle. So the full distance around the circle is called the circumference. If you've got a little bit of it, it's an arc. If you've got a line across it, that would be a chord. And the part that's kind of trapped in there is called a segment. Then if you've got a line across the circle going through the centre, that's a diameter. If you've got a line just going to the centre, if I can draw it properly, then that's called a radius. If you've got a line that touches the circle just on one point, like that, that's a tangent. But in this case, we have a sector. To multiply fractions, all you need to do is multiply the tops. 3 times 7 is 21. And multiply the bottoms. 4 times 11 is 44. We see whether we can simplify this, but actually there's no number that goes into 21 and 44. So it's 21 over 44 is our answer. The midpoint of a line is just the halfway point of the line, and we can see that the halfway point will be here. And so the coordinates of that point are 0, 2. Whenever we're putting fractions, decimals and percentages in order, the best way of doing it is converting them all into decimals. So here we've got 0.8, which is already a decimal, so that's just going to be 0.8. Here we've got 9/10, so 9/10 is 0 in the units column and a 9 in the tenths column. 7 over 25, well, something we can do with that is just times top and bottom by 4, so we get 28 over 100. So it's going to be 0 in the units column, 2 in the tenths column, and 8 in the hundredths column. Next thing we're going to do is draw a little place value table. And so we've got units here, tenths and hundredths. So we've got 0.9, 0.28 and 0.8. And you can see here that looking at the tenths column, that 2 means that this 0.28 is the smallest. So 0.28 is 7 over 25, so that's our smallest. And it says it wants it in ascending order, which just basically means from smallest to biggest. Okay, looking at that, so we've dealt with that. The next smallest is that 8, so 0.8. So 0.8 will be our next smallest. and then the largest is that 0.9. Now 0.9 is 9 over 10. Now always make sure that if it's given in a fraction that you don't write the decimal in the answer. You want to make sure you write what the question had with it. To find the surface area of the cuboid, I'm just going to label the faces and do them individually. So we've got A, which is 24 by 13. So we're going to do 24 times 13, which is 312. Next we're going to do B, which is this one at the top, and it's 24 across and 8 is the length. So 24 times 8, which is 192. And finally C on this side here, which is going to be 13 times 8, which is 104. Now notice that the faces all have the exact same face on the opposite side. So this one at the back is also A, this one at the side is also C, and the one at the bottom is also B. So what I'm going to do is add up all the areas of the squares and double it. So to work out the surface area, we're going to do 2 times and then 312 plus 192 plus 104, and that will give me 1,216 centimeters cubed squared, because it's an area. So for a time series graph, it's just a line graph with time being on the x-axis, and so we've got the first one plotted for us, so we're going to plot the next one. So it's 2011, 14 high, 2012, 17 high, which will be here, and then 2013 is 7 high. And then what we do is we just join them up with straight lines. And that's us done. I'm going to start by working out what the building is, or the width of the building is, in centimetres. So it says 33 metres, and I'm going to convert that into centimetres by timesing by 100. Okay, now when it says it has a scale of 1 to 300, it means 300 in real life is 1 on our map. So all I need to do is divide it by 300 to find out what it's going to be on our map. So we'll just divide that by 300 and I get the answer of 11. So it's going to be 11 centimeters on our map. The front elevation of a shape is the view you'll get if you were standing at the front. So if you imagine you're standing here, the only side you will see is this side here. And what will it look like? Well, it will look like a complete square or rectangle. And how high will it be? Well, it will be 6 centimeters high. And how wide will it be? Well, it will be 2 centimeters wide. So what we're going to do is we're going to just draw a rectangle that is 2 centimeters wide and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 centimeters tall. There we go. And make sure that you don't add any three-dimensional aspects to it, that you don't do something like this, have some 3D stuff on it. No. Whenever you do a front elevation, it's exactly perfectly two-dimensional. The experimental probability is the successful outcomes divided by the total number of outcomes. So we're looking for the probability that it's white, so it's going to be 25 over, and we're just going to do 35 plus 25 plus 31, which is 91, and that's our probability, 25 over 91. Be careful when it say total, you must include all of the outcomes, so red, white and other. To get from the length of a square to the area, we square the length. To work backwards, what we do is we square root, because the inverse of square is square root. So we've got 196 and we're going to square root it to find the length. So we work out the square root of 196, which is what number times itself is 196. And you should learn them from 1 to 15. So you should know all of the square numbers from 1 to 15. So you should know that the answer is 14. So the length therefore is 14. So to work out what the perimeter is going to be the distance around the square. So if I draw a square out, we know that each of these lengths are 14. So it's just going to be 14 times 4, which will be 56. It's really important when answering this question that we're really methodical. So we're going to start off just looking at steak. And so I'm going to start off with the S. And we're going to pair it with the first dessert, which is the I. Then we're going to pair the steak with the second dessert, which is the mousse. Then we're going to pair it with the third dessert, which is the fruit. So we're being really methodical. We've done all of the combinations with steak. And so we're going to look at burger next. And we're going to pair it with the first ice cream. Then burger. And we're going to pair it with the mousse. And then finally the burger we're going to pair with the fruit. As long as we do things methodically, we don't ever miss any. A plane of symmetry is anywhere you can cut a three-dimensional shape, in this case a cuboid, and put it up against a mirror and it looks like the original shape. So if we were to cut the cuboid here, and then put it up against a mirror, it would look like the cuboid again. Similarly, if we were to cut it along here, it would look like the original cuboid again. And finally, if we were to cut it up the top here, down, across the bottom here, and then up here, and put it up against a mirror, it would look like the original cuboid again. Now you might think that diagonal ones will work with this. Diagonal ones only work with cubes, not cuboids. So our answer is 3. To work out the circumference, we need to first of all work out what the diameter of this is. And to do that, we just draw a line across the circle, and we can see the diameter is twice as big as the radius. So the diameter is going to be the radius times 2, which is 28. Formula for the circumference of a circle is just pi times the diameter, which will be pi times 28. Now to write this in terms of pi, which the question asked for, we just put the number first and then pi. So it will be 28 pi. So the rules of indices state that if you have a power inside and outside of a bracket, we just multiply them together. So it's 10 to the power of minus 12 times minus 12. 2 negatives make a positive, and 12 times 12 is 144. Whenever we do these kind of questions, it's always best to convert the pattern into numbers. So we're just going to count the dots. So we've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 in the first one. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So our sequence is going 9, 13, 17. And we're going to see what it's going up in. So we're adding 4 each time. And that means our sequence will involve 4n. And then what we do is we go backwards 1 to find the 0th term. So we're going to take away 1. So 9 take away 1 is 5. So the 0th term is 5. And the 0th term just tells us what to add on to the 4n. So 4n plus 5 will be our answer. So to find the locus of points that are 10 centimeters away from a point, you need to measure 10 centimeters on a pair of compasses. And then you put the point at A and draw them. Now I'm going to try my best to do this. It's probably not going to look perfect, but I'll do my best. And the length here, which is supposed to be, probably isn't exactly, but this part here is going to be 10 centimeters to get the full marks. And obviously you want the circle to be a little bit nicer than the one I've drawn, but try and get it as perfect as you can. And the best way of doing that is just don't push down too much and just move the page around with your compass being stationary. The important thing to realise in this question is that we know a female has been selected, so we can just basically get rid of all of this part of the frequency tree because it's not relevant, because we know a female has been selected. So there's 29 females altogether, and we're looking for the probability that the female chosen at random picked action. So it's just simply 16 over 29. To work out the area of a rectangle, we just multiply the width and the length. Here they are mixed numbers, so all we do is the width times the length. Now when you multiply with fractions, always make them top heavy first, or improper, and to do that you times the big number by the bottom and add it to the top. So we're going to do 1 times 2 and add it to the top, so 3 over 2. Same with this one, 1 times the 3 at the bottom, added to the top. 1 times 3 is 3, add to the top is 5. Now we've got to get the numerator, we don't need to get the numerator the same, we're multiplying. All we do now, really easily, is just multiply the tops and multiply the bottoms. So we've got to convert 15 over 6 into a mixed number because it asks for a mixed number. So 15, how many 6's go into 15? Well, we're first of all going to have 2 whole ones, and how many left over? There are going to be 3 left over. Now, 3 over 6 is the same as 1/2 because we can divide top and bottom by 3. So our answer is 2.5. So we're asked to find the value of n where both sequences have the same term. So I'm going to start off by equaling both nth terms to each other, and then we can find the value of n which gives the same term. So I draw my lines down, and I'm going to start off by getting rid of the n's from both sides. So we look to see which is the smaller amount. So we've got 12n and we've got 6n, so the smaller amount is the 6n. So we're going to take away 6n both sides, and so that would be 6n plus 19, and we've got rid of the 6n, so just 79. Next thing we're going to do is get rid of the 19, so take away 19 both sides, and so we've got 6n equals 79, take away 19, which is 60. And finally, we're just going to divide the 6, and so that would be n equals 10. So the value of n is 10. Now we can just test this, because if you do 6 times 10, which is 60, 60 plus 79, which would be 139. And then if we do the same for the top one, 12 times 10, which is 120, plus 19, which is 139. So they both have the same term when n is 10. To go from meters to centimeters, we obviously times by 100. But to go from meters squared to centimeters squared, we times by 100 per dimension. Now, whenever we talk about things in meters squared, we're talking about areas which have 2 dimensions. So we times it by 100 squared. So when we've got a 2 meters squared here, we times by 100 squared to get it into centimeters squared. So that's going to be 20,000. When finding a sample of people, you want everyone in the population to have an equal chance of being picked. So in method 1, the fact in a lifestyle magazine might bias the people reading it, because there's groups of people that don't read lifestyle magazines. A poster up in the gym, again, there's groups of people who don't go to the gym. And midday in town centres, well, it might be on a school day, or it might be that you are skewing your data towards retired people. There's lots of reasons why a certain group of people won't be at a town centre at midday. The only one here that gives everyone an equal chance of being picked is this one here. Okay, so picking people randomly from the electoral roll. There are some groups of people who might choose not to be on the electoral roll, but looking at the four methods, this one is by far the most fair sample. To answer this question, I'm going to do a quick number line, and I'm going to put the 12 meters on my number line, and I'm going to think what the next number down would be that it could have rounded to. Well, it's 10 to the nearest meter, so the next number it could have rounded to is 11, and to find the minimum it could have been before rounding to 12, all we need to do is find the halfway point between 11 and 12, which is obviously going to be 11.5. So our answer is 11.5 meters. Whenever we solve, we've got to get rid of any fractions or brackets first. Now looking at this, there's no fractions, but there are two sets of brackets. We've got the set of brackets here, and we've got the set of brackets here. So we're going to expand them to get rid of them. And you can use any method you want. I'm just going to use this kind of grid method. So we're doing 4 times, and inside the brackets we've got 3x plus 5. So I'm going to times those out. 4 times 3 is 12, so that'll be 12x. 4 times 5 is 20, so that's going to be positive 20. And I'm going to do the same for the other set of brackets. Now on the outside of the brackets we've got to be careful here. It's not a 5, it's a minus 5. And inside the brackets is an x and a 2. So minus 5 times x is minus 5x. Minus 5 times 2 is minus 10. So when we put it all together, we get 12x plus 20 minus 5x minus 10. And then the rest of it is just equals 52. So I'm going to start by putting my lines in because we're solving. And I'm actually just going to start by collecting the like terms on the left hand side. So 12x take away 5x is going to be 7x. And 20 take away 10 is going to be 10. Okay, now we need to get rid of the plus 10. So we'll take away 10 both sides. So we've got 7x equals 42. And then we need to get rid of the times 7, so we're going to divide 7 both sides. So x equals 6. The first thing that we can actually work out for this Venn diagram is this part here. So it says 12 had a cat but not a dog. So the cat but not a dog is showed with this A here. So if 12 had a cat but not a dog, and in total 22 had a cat, we're going to do 22 take away 12, which is 10. So 10 had a cat and a dog. If 16 had a dog, and 10 also had a cat, that means that 6 had a dog. Let's make sure we fill these in. And if overall there were 31 people, and there were 12 who just had a cat, 10 who had a cat and a dog, and 6 who had a dog, that leaves 3 left over. The rules of indices say that when we multiply two numbers of the same base, and the base are the big numbers, then we add the powers. So we're just going to do that to the top fraction here. So it's going to be 5 to the power 13 plus 4, which is 17. And then that's going to be over 5 to the power 5. Now, what a fraction is basically is a division. So it's 5 to the power 17 divided by 5 to the power 5. And the rules of indices say that when you've got two numbers of the same base, which we do here, and we divide them, we take away the powers. So we're going to do 17 take away 5, which is 12. So we're going to start by understanding that all lines form or can form an equation y equals mx plus c, with m being the gradient and c being the y-intercept. It says here the gradient is -2, so we've already got a bit of a head start with this, but we don't know what the y-intercept is. So we're going to use this first set of coordinates to work out what the y-intercept is. So y is -31 and x is 15. And we're going to use this to solve and find out what c is. So first thing I'm going to do is, well, just tidy this up. 2 times 15 is 30, so minus 30 plus c. And I'm just going to add 30 to both sides to get c on its own. So that would be minus 1 equals c. So c is minus 1. So we now know that the equation is y equals minus 2x minus 1. And we're told that the y is minus 37. And we're looking for the x value, which they've called w. So let's get our solving lines in. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is add 1 to both sides. And so it would be minus 36 equals minus 2x. I'm going to now times, or divide everything by minus 2. And a negative divided by a negative is positive. 36 divided by 2 is 18. And then obviously that gets rid of the coefficient of the x, so it's just x. So x equals 18. So the x value is 18 and the x value is the w value. So w is 18. So we can quickly draw a line of best fit for here. And it looks something like that. And if our line of best fit is increasing like we have here, then we say the data is positive. If, however, the line of best fit is decreasing and looks like this, we say that it's a negative correlation. So positive if it's going up, which this one is, so it's a positive correlation. And if it's going down, then it's a negative correlation. If the data is all over the place, so it looks like something like this, where you've got the points everywhere, we say that's no correlation. So to make estimates from a scatter graph, we've got to first of all draw a line of best fit, which would be something like this. And what we'll do is to find estimate of test score B, given the fact they got 25 on test A, means that we would draw a line up from test A at 25, should be here, and then across, and that's how we'd make the estimate. But look at where that is hitting our line of best fit. It's hitting it here. What do you notice about this position here? Well, all of our data is down here. We don't know whether this trend continues up at this point here. We have no idea. For instance, if you were to plot a scatter graph of height against age, we would see it would increase like that, but that line doesn't continue on forever. Like, you're not a 10-foot giant at the age of 30. You do slowly stop growing, and so we don't know whether the trend continues. So we call this extrapolation. So we say that the data has been extrapolated. And what that means is it is probably not accurate. So when you have the data outside the range of the data, when you have a prediction, outside the range of the data, we say it's probably not accurate. If it was inside the data, we would say it's interpolated, and that's actually quite accurate. On a scatter graph, an outlier is a point which doesn't fit the pattern. And as we can see here, all of these coordinates fit kind of a nice line going down there. So they all are showing a trend. But we've got this point here that's nowhere near that trend at all, and that's what we call an outlier. So we know that these are going up in twos, so this will be 28. So the x coordinate will be 28, and this will be 19. So our coordinate will be 28, 19 for our outlier. To solve this, we've got to first of all factorize the left-hand side. And so we look at the number, and it's definitely a difference of 2 squareds. So x squared the square root of that will be x. And we think about what the square root of 144 is, which is 12. And so we plus 12 and we minus 12. So difference of 2 squares, you take the positive and the negative root. Now to solve, one of these brackets is going to equal to 0. So we're going to do the first bracket equal to 0. So we've got x plus 12 equals 0. And we're just going to Put our lines down and take away 12 both sides, and we get x equals minus 12. So one of our solutions is minus 12, and we do exactly the same thing to the other bracket. So get it equal to 0 and solve. So add 12 both sides. You'll notice something about the numbers here, that they are just exactly the same, and that's because that when you find a solution, you get the number here and you just change the sign, so that becomes minus 12 and that becomes plus 12. First thing I'm going to do is just draw the square out, and we know the length of it is 10x plus 10, but it is a square, so that's the same all the way around it. But we're also told that the perimeter is 440, so the perimeter is 440. So what we can do is we can work out the perimeter in algebra by multiplying 10x plus 10 by 4, or just adding up the 4 lengths that we've got. So we're going to do 4 times 10x plus 10. But we also know that that is going to be 440 because we're told in the question that the perimeter is 440. So put our lines in because we're going to solve, and we're just going to start by expanding the brackets, so that'll be 40x plus 40 equals 440. Then we're going to get rid of the plus 40 first, so take away 40 both sides. And so that would be 40x equals 400. And then we get rid of the 40 before the x, so we divide both sides by 40. And we've got x equals 10. So our answer is 10. So this question is asking us really to divide the 5 3/4 by 1 3/4. So we're going to do 5 3/4 divided by 1 3/4, because we're finding out how many of each of these towels, which is 1 3/4 meter, can be made when the total amount of cotton is 5 3/4. So first thing we're going to do is convert them to mixed numbers, to top-heavy or improper fractions, because at the moment they're mixed numbers and we can't divide or times if they're mixed. So we times the 5 by the 4 and add it to the top, which will be 20, and then add it to the top 23, and then do the same. 1 times 4 is 4, plus it to the top is 7 over 4. Now a little trick here is KFC. We keep the first fraction, we flip the second fraction, and we change the divide sign to a time sign. So we're going to keep this first fraction as it is, change that divide to a times, and flip the second fraction. Okay, whenever we multiply, we just multiply the tops, so 23 times 4, which is 92, and we times the bottoms, which will be 28. And now we need to convert this back into a mixed number. So first of all, actually we can simplify this because we can divide top and bottom by 4. So that would be 23 over 7, and then make this a mixed number. So 7's into 23 go 3 whole ones, and then obviously 2 remainders, so it's 2 over 7. Now it asks us for the amount of towels that she can sew patterns into. Now the issue here is that she will do 3 whole towels but then have some left over, but she doesn't have enough to create a 4th towel, so it's just going to be 3 as an answer. So in this question we basically need to add the 2 3/4 and the 2 2/5. So we're going to do 2 3/4 plus 2 2/5. Now if I just rewrite this, 2 3/4 can be written as 2 plus 3/4 plus 2 plus 2 1/5, or 2/5. So we can add the 2 2's together to make 4, and then all we need to do is add the 3/4 and the 2/5. So when you add two numbers with different denominators, what we need to do is get the common denominators, and we do that by just quickly writing out the 4 and the 5 times table and seeing what the first number in both their times tables is. 16, 20, and 5, 10, 15, 20. So that's 20. So we need to get the bottoms of the fractions to 20. Now for 3/4, to get the bottom to equal 20, we need to times the 4 by 5. And whatever you do to the bottom, you've got to do to the top. So times that by 5 as well, which will be 15. And for 2/5, we'll get that bottom to 20. So we times that by 4. And so we've got to times the top by 4 as well to make it 8. So it's going to be 15 over 20 plus 8 over 20. So we need to add the numerators. So it'd be 15 plus 8, which is going to be 23 over 20. Now that is a top-heavy fraction, so we can rewrite that as 1 and 3/20. And we can add the 4 and the 1 together to make 5 and 3/20. So the answer is 5 and 3/20. So we're going to first of all work out where 9 is on the y-axis. Well, we've got 8 here and 10 here, so 9 will be halfway in between. And what we're going to do now is just draw a line across at 9, and then wait until it hits the line. And then we're going to draw a line down, and you can see here that x is 1. So our answer is that x equals 1. So we're going to write an expression for the amount of people on the first bus. So they've started with x passengers and they've gone to 11 bus stops with x passengers. So altogether that is 12x. So we're going to have the first bus, and so we've got 12x. And then on the last bus stop, 19 passengers get on, so plus 19. Now for the second bus, well, we start with x, and a further 5x come on, because 5 bus stops with x passengers, so that's 6x altogether. And then 79 get on. And it says the first bus finishes with less passengers than the first. So the first bus finishes with less, and the way we show that is with this inequality here. Now all we need to do is solve that inequality, and we've got x on both sides, so we look at the x's. We've got 12x and 6x, so we always take away the smaller amount, so we're going to take away the 6x both sides. And next thing we're going to do is take away the 19 from both sides. And so, meant to be 60. Got ahead of myself. And the last thing we do is divide by 6 both sides. And so we've got x is less than 10. Now, it says here, assuming no passengers got off either bus, what is the largest value for x? Now it is tempting to write down 10, but it says x has to be less than 10. So the biggest number we can get that is less than 10 is 9. To subtract mixed numbers, we must convert them into improper fractions first. So to do that, we do the big number times the bottom and add to the top. So it's going to be 3 times 4, which is 12, and add to the top, which is 15. Keep the bottom the same. 2 times 5, add to the top. So 2 times 5 is 10, add to the top is 11. Now we need to get the denominators the same. So the first number in the 4 and the 5 times table So we just write out the times tables, and we can see that 20 is the first number in both of them. So we're going to times top bottom of the first fraction by 5 and top bottom of the second fraction by 4. So we must have the denominators the same to be able to add or subtract them, in this case subtract them. So when we do that, we get 75 over 20, and 11 times 4 is 44 over 20. Subtract the tops and we get 31 over 20. This is improper, so we can take away one lot of 20 from the top, which will give us 1 and 11 over 20, and that is actually our answer. to find an error interval, what we need to do is find the smallest and largest that a number can be. So I start by just drawing a quick number line, and we put our number in the middle, which is 89.6. Now we're looking to the nearest tenth, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to write down the next number down and the next number up in tenths. So the next number down would be 89.5, the next number up would be 89.7. Now the bounds, the upper and lower bound, the maximum and minimum number it could be before rounding, are going to be at the halfway points. So here and here. And so all we need to do is work out what those numbers are. So halfway between 89.5 and 89.6 is 89.55. And halfway between 89.6 and 89.7 is 89.65. So those are going to be our lower and upper bounds. But how do we show it as an error interval? Well, we put t in the middle because it tells us that t is representing the time, and we show it with inequalities. Now, the number can be 89.55, but it can't be 89.65 because that would round to 89.7. So we say everything that's less than but not equal to. So here we're given a right angle triangle, and the question involves two lengths and angles, so we know we could be using trigonometry. So let's start by labelling our sides. The one opposite the right angle is the hypotenuse, the one opposite the marked angle is the opposite, and the one between the right angle and the marked angle is the adjacent. Now notice the hypotenuse doesn't have a number or letter next to it, so let's get rid of that. Next thing we do is draw our trigonometry triangles. So we've got SO, Ca, Toa. Now we've crossed out the H, so we're not going to be interested in the SO or the Ca. So it's going to be Toa. Toa is short for tan the angle equals opposite over adjacent. The angle is 60, so it's tan 60 equals x over 1. And so now here we're looking for the exact value of x. So if I times both sides here, let's just get our solving lines in here, and times both sides by 1, or just get rid of the fraction, we end up with x equals tan 60. Now you need to know off by heart what tan 60 is, and we can work it out just briefly by drawing a right angle triangle, sorry, not a right angle triangle, an equilateral triangle. So that is going to be 60 by 60 by 60. And we're going to put all the lengths around the outside as 2. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it down the middle. And I'm just going to cut it into half. And so the length at the bottom will be 1. And using Pythagoras, we've got to work out the length here. It's going to be 2 squared, which is 4, take away 1 squared, which is 1, will be 3, and then square root it would be root 3. So we know that's going to be root 3. So looking at labelling the sides here, just pick a colour to make sure it's nice. So we've got the hypotenuse here, we've got the adjacent here, and then the root 3 will be the opposite. And so we're looking for tan 60. So tan, as we know, is the opposite over adjacent. And so tan 60 is going to be the opposite, which is root 3, over the adjacent, which is 1 in our diagram there. So tan 60 is equivalent, it's the same as root 3 over 1, or just root 3. There are a few different ways you could answer this question. I'm going to do it with a tree diagram, but you didn't need to draw a tree diagram to answer this question. So we've got our first tree, which is our first bus. And the choices are male and female. And we've got our second kind of branch, I suppose. And it's still male and female. And this is our second bus. So the property of male on a first bus is 9/15, and therefore the property of female is 1 minus 9/15, which would be 6/15. Male on the second bus is 7/15, and so female would be 8/15, because they need to add up to 1. And it's independent, so these will be the same. And the question is basically asking what is the probability that both will be female. So to have both female, we need to have gone down this line at the start and then this line again. Okay, so looking at the fractions along the way, it's 6/15 and 8/15. The word "and" in probability means times. So whenever you're finding the probability of getting to an outcome, so this outcome will be FF, because they're both female, you are multiplying the fractions that you go across. So it would be 6/15 times 8/15. So 6 times 8 is 48, and times the bottoms, 15 times 15 is 225. Now you can actually cancel that down. So what you can do is you can divide top and bottom by 4, and that will give you 16. Is it 4? No, you can divide top and bottom by 3, and that would be 16/75. So either 48/225 or 16/75. There's two parts to this power. I'm just going to do it a bit bigger so we can see. We've got the negative here, and the negative will mean that we will find the reciprocal, and we've got this 3 here, which is just what the power will be. So how do we find the reciprocal? Well, if you think about the number 10, if you had to write that as a fraction, you would write it as 10/1. And so to find the reciprocal of it, we're just going to flip that fraction. So this will now become 1/10. We haven't dealt with that cube yet. So we're going to cube top and bottom with that fraction. Well, it's not going to do anything to the top because 1 cubed is just 1, but the bottom will turn into 1,000. So it's going to be 1/1000. So the first term will be 50 to the power of 1. Anything to the power of 1 is just itself, so that will just be 50. The next one will be 50 squared. So that's going to be 50 times 50, which would be 5 times 5 times 10 times 10. 25 times 100, which would be 250. 2,500 even. And then the last one is 50 cubed. So that's going to be the 2,500 times 50 again. And so when you times that out, you get 125,000. What I'm going to start off by doing is rearranging this equation so that it kind of matches this one. So I'm just going to write it down. And we want the n to be -2. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put my rearranging lines in, and we're just going to add 10 to both sides. Now, we've already got this line drawn for us on this graph. And so all we need to do is draw this line. So we've got y equals 10x squared plus 8x minus 2 drawn for us. We just need to draw this line, which is y equals 10, and see where they cross over to find the solutions. So y equals 10 will be all the way up at the top. Let's just make sure I get it nice. There we are. I need to move that up a little bit. There we are. And let's read off the values that that gives us. So it comes down here, and it comes down here. So the values it comes down to are minus 1.6 and 0.8. And those are our solutions. To start these questions, we always start here and we go down the line. So it says probability of winning both games. So we're going to go up this one and we're going to pass this fraction here. And then we're going to win this second game. So we'll go up this one and cross this fraction here. Now the bit at the end will show us the probability of winning game 1 and the probability of winning game 2. So probability of winning game 1 was the first fraction we circled, which was 10 over 11. Probability of winning game 2 was the second one we've circled, which is 4 over 5. The word and in probability means times. So we're going to times the tops, which is 40, times the bottom, which is 55. And we can divide top and bottom by 5. So that will give us the probability of 8 over 11. Acceleration is change in velocity over change in time. So change in velocity where it starts at 0 and goes up to 150. So that would be 150 over the change in times. Well, the time starts at 0 and goes up to 5, so that's 5. And so 150 divided by 5 is 30. The velocity is in meters per second, the time's in seconds, so the units will be meters per second squared. So it's 30 meters per second squared. So we're going to start by doing a grid, a multiplication grid, and we're going to start by putting 2x plus 11 at the top and 5x plus 3 down the side. And we're going to multiply them out, so 5 times 2 is 10, so it'd be 10x squared. 5x times 11, so 5 times 11 is 55, so that'd be 55x, and it's positive. And 3 times 2 is 6, so that'd be 6x, and that's positive. And 3 times 11 is 33, and that'd be a positive. So when we put them all together, we get 10x squared plus 55x plus 6x plus 33. You can see that the x terms are like terms, so we can add them together. So we get 10x squared plus 61x plus 33. So our answer will be 10x squared plus 61x plus 33. So the first thing I notice is the second equation isn't really in the normal format for doing simultaneous equations. So I'm just going to rearrange it so that we have it where we want it to be. And I'm just going to put my lines in so I can rearrange. So the first thing I want is the x's and y's on the same side. In fact, actually all I need to do is take away 4y from both sides and we get 5x minus 4y equals minus 7. Okay, so what we do now is we put both our equations down so we can solve these simultaneously. So 5x minus 4y equals minus 7. And you notice the coefficient of the y is already the same, so we don't need to multiply anything. But the signs are different, and the d in different is the d in add. So we're going to add going downwards. So we're going to add everything. So we're doing 3x plus 5x, which is 8x. 4y plus minus 4y is nothing, which is good, because we want to get rid of that. And 47 take away 7 is 40. Alright, let's put our solving lines in. And we're going to divide by 8 both sides. So we get x equals 5. And we're going to substitute that value into one of the equations. I'm going to pick this top one. So instead of 3x, we're doing 3 times 5 plus 4y equals 47. Get my solving lines in. So that will be 15 plus 4y equals 47. And then we're going to take away the 15 both sides. And so it's 4y equals 47 take away 15, which is 32. Divide by 4 both sides, and we get y equals 8. And we can check that using this equation here. So 5 times 5 is 25, take away 4 times 8, which is 32, is -7. So we know we've got it right. You can complete a unique version of this paper by going to our onmaths site. onmaths is full of free content to help you prepare for your exams, such as topic-based papers, demon questions, and mini mocks. If you like what we do, please consider subscribing.